A new app. Okay, we are live. Hi, welcome to the Impact Revolution channel. Peter, how are you doing? Thank you so much for coming.
I'm doing well. Thank you for the invitation.
No, my absolute pleasure. Normally, Peter, we start with personal questions, a couple of them, if that's
Okay.
okay with you,
hmm
just the audience to know you a bit better. And then later we
Okay.
go to the more professional life experiences. Is that okay?
hmm Sure.
Cool. All right. So, Peter, one of my favorite questions is if you could wake up tomorrow anywhere in the world,
hmm
where it will
hmm
be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a really difficult question because there's so many interesting places to choose from.
Sure,
Okay.
I know.
Um, we were talking about Brazil, and I said I haven't been to Brazil in ages, and it would be great to come back there.
Okay, cool.
Portugal is one of my favorite destinations, and Sri Lanka is one of my favorite destinations. And sometimes, particularly the day of internet travel, it's also nice just to wake up in your own bed. So I would
Uh,
take, any of those four and be happy with any one of them.
Very nice. It's quite different, that you say Sri Lanka because I was remember that I went there in Colombo
hmm
once just
hmm
to a
Yeah.
short trip, and I was wondering why Sri Lanka.
Why Sri Lanka? Well, there's kind of the obvious reason that they have some of the warmest beaches anywhere in the world. The,
Uh,
the water there is very warm. Um, I've had a lot of occasion to work with people down there, and I've met a number of very deep thinkers down there.
okay.
And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's cool. Very cool.
And
Interesting.
enjoyable and interesting. Yes.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Peter, the next question. If I ask you what will be, or what memory comes to your mind if I ask you what was the happiest moment in your life so far?
Oh, the happiest moment in my life so far. Um, there have been a number of them. So I had, as a proud parent, I recently had something that was really quite delightful. Both of my children had major successes in their respective careers.
All right.
Um, my daughter,
Great.
my daughter won she wants to be a singer, and she
Okay.
was at a national competition, and she got a first prize cum laude, and it kind of qualifies her for the next step. And that's the sort of thing that every aspiring classical musician wants to have on their resume. And so she was really
That's cool.
proud. And on the same day, my son is into rowing, and so on his first day, on his first competition in a
Yes.
new what is it? They went to a new formation where they're going four men instead of two or
Uh-huh.
eight. So this was new for him. And on their first entry, they won a gold medal. So that was a very promising start. And so
Okay.
both of them had a success in the same day. And it really makes your life easier as a parent when, both of your kids are doing well. And, you can easily
Definitely.
be proud of both of them. And neither one has to be jealous of the other. So that was good.
Congratulations for that,
Yeah.
Peter. That's
Mhm.
good. How do you think you, just out of curiosity, okay, how did you influence that outcomes to them? Is there anything or any parent tips that you may could provide to us?
So I think there were two things.
Okay.
One, when you've got kids who are now in their teenagers or early 20s,
Hmm.
um, there's this kind of fine line between being helpful and knowing when to stay out of the way. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's the right thing to do to stay out of the way. And sometimes your kids want advice, and the time to do is to give support and advice.
Cool.
And sometimes you need to get up at 5 in the morning and take them to where they have to go. And so I think I think it's kind of be helpful, be open. Um, I find if you let your kids be themselves, they can develop, and most people want to make something out of their lives, and they'll do that on their own. They don't need to be pushed, I don't
All
think.
right.
Could be
Okay.
wrong on
Cool.
that one, but it seems to apply to my kids.
All right, very good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. Yeah, I guess when you are from with them since they are kids with that kind of
Mhm.
mindset, it's easier than when you may take them in the old stages that and the influence of the resistance to change can be a bit harder, right? Makes sense. Okay, very good. All right,
Yeah.
so now you are the creator of the Personal Agility Institute.
Right. Mhm.
And I was wondering, how did you come up with this idea? How everything started, basically.
Okay. Well, for me, first of all, I'm the co-creator of the Institute and co-author of the book, but I'm the inventor of the personal agility system. So I
Okay.
have a partner, Maria Mattarelli, and we wrote the book together and created the institute together.
Okay, great.
For me, I had been in the so-called agile space for, depending on how you count it, officially for about 15 years. And I'd actually done my first agile project way back in 1993, although I didn't know it at the time. The word agile hadn't been invented yet, and Scrum
Uh,
hadn't been invented yet either. But the way I was working was real simple. I got together with my client. We talked about the problem to be solved. A week later, I showed him something that worked, and he said, "Oh, cool. Now, what do we do next?" And we figured out what the next step was.
mm-hmm.
And over the course of about 3, maybe 4 months, I put together some software that was the basis of my career for the next 10 years.
All right.
And fast forward about 15 years, and I came in contact with agile software development. And this was like, wow, this was coming home. This was finally a way of organizing people that works. So it was a real aha moment for me.
Uh-huh.
And I decided to really focus on that. And I became a Scrum coach and a Scrum trainer.
Uh-huh.
And by 2016, I was an independent. I'd been certified as a Scrum trainer. I was an independent businessman, and I was working like crazy. Okay, you know that thing about the entrepreneur is someone who'd rather work 80 hours a week for himself than 40 hours a week for someone else. Well, that was definitely me. Okay, I mean that was definitely me. But I felt like, I feel like I'm working awfully hard, and I don't feel like I'm making the progress that I wanted to be making. And
Uh-huh.
so I started asking myself the question, could I organize myself better? Gee, maybe I could even use Scrum to organize my life. And
Uh-huh.
so I started experimenting and discovered that Scrum was a good place to start, but didn't quite fit for the problem of organizing my life because Scrum is about teams working in a business concept, business
Mm-hmm.
context. And so I started adapting it and having conversations with people. And all of a sudden, it kind of took on an identity of its own and a character of its own. And I started sharing it with people. And one of my customers, about 6 months after I shared it to him, he wrote back to me this 3-word email and said, "This really works." And it was like, wow, something that really works. And
Uh-huh.
I met up with Maria Mattarelli, and I asked her what had become the core question of personal agility, which is what really matters. And she thought about that for a moment and kind of came up with the obvious answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, "Well, actually, I've been in the hospital a lot and I've had health problems. And you know what? My health isn't even on my radar." And that was when kind of the light went on for her. And she says, "I need to do something to take care of my health." And she completely changed the direction of her life. And so this
Mm.
is what we've been seeing, kind of over and over in, at the personal level and at the, uh, you know, leadership teams that kind of start
Sure.
thinking about what really matters. They get this clarity, and all of a sudden, not only is change possible, it's easy because it's beneficial and people want to do it. And so all of these success, eventually we started cataloging the success stories and turning them into case studies, and that became our book. And so the thing has just kind of taken on a life of its own, and
All
that's where
right.
I am today. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, very good. That's very interesting. And what are the best practical tools that you may could share with us today regarding personal
Okay.
agility?
Okay. Well, the most powerful tool is a question. Ask yourself questions that make you think, and then
Mm-hmm.
listen to the answers. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds a little bit weird. You know, he's talking to himself. Is that okay? But actually, talking to yourself and listening to the answers, a lot of people don't actually do that, which is why
Uh-huh.
they're so unhappy. And when they start to do that, all of a sudden, their life starts to make sense to them, and they also start to feel more in control.
Uh-huh.
So, for me, personal agility, it's not a framework, it's not a process. It's at its heart, it's a collection of questions to ask yourself. And the most important is what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When
Mm-hmm.
you have clarity of purpose, then all of a sudden, you start making decisions. And, you know, in any given situation, there's the easy way out, which is usually, saying yes to somebody who wants you to do something you don't want to do. And then there's the hard thing, which is to say, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So think of a boat. You've got your hand on the rudder, okay, and a sailboat is always sailing into the wind, okay. So there's always some, there's always some pressure and some friction to where you want to go. But it's
Mm-hmm.
only by turning into the wind that you get where you want to go. Otherwise, you just kind of get blown around by the waves and the currents.
Sure.
Um, and so anyway, so we start with this what really matters question, and then we got a couple of other questions to help you figure out where you are and where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
What really matters tells you where you want to be going. And so, well, I want to be going that way, but actually I'm drifting off to the right. So just like a sailor who's navigating, well,
Mm-hmm.
let's turn 20 degrees to the left. and start heading back to my personal destination. We call this Jamaica for historical reasons. Where is Jamaica? That's the place I want to be. And so you say, Jamaica's over there, so, but I'm going over this way. Well, do I want to? Yeah, I want to go to Jamaica. So turn left. Let's set course to Jamaica. And so you can do this. We call them 6 questions. They're the basis of personal agility, and
Okay.
they really just help you figure out where you are, where you're going, remind you where you want to be going. And if
Mm-hmm.
there's any difference between where you are going and where you want to be going, well, now you say, let's spend more time on stuff that matters. That's going to take me to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. Very good. And do you have any example now looking back to these 80 hours that you were working on, right?
Yeah.
That you came up with this kind of formula. What were the main or what really matters then, Peter, for you?
So for me, my what really matters is basically 3 things right now.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is, I want people to know about personal agility. I think it's somehow bigger than me, and I want to spread the word, and I want that to be, I want that to be my day job. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a hobby of mine, and I've been kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back for several years now. So one thing which I want to do is kind of bring out the word on personal agility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the next thing is about health, happiness, staying healthy, keeping the family happy, and on an even keel. So kind of the work-life balance topics. And then the last thing I call this run my business, which is, kind of keeping, making sure the light bills get paid and stuff like that. So, there's this balance of these 3 factors. Okay.
Okay.
And, basically every week I kind of look at what the plan, what could I do? What do I have on my agenda? What do I have on my plate? What's going to help me move forward? And making sure that some of the things that I do help me, advance one of those 3 things that matters.
All right. Very good. Very good. Thank you. And I wanted to go back again, if that's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That moment where you say, you prefer working 80 hours than 40 hours for someone else, right?
Yeah.
And that
Mm-hmm.
you came on, okay, maybe I'm not being so effective. Is there any practical example or example that you remember that say, okay, this is where I want to focus?
Well, one of the things that I remember very clearly is,
Mm-hmm.
when you're working that hard, you're kind of always on the limits of burnout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And um, you know, our bodies need rest. Okay. Now we can
Sure.
go on task for a while and we can stay on task for a while, but sooner or later, there's going to be a little voice in your body somewhere saying, I want to, you need to slow down. You need to get some rest. And at this point, 1 of 2 things happens. Either you hear that voice and you respond to that voice, or whether you don't hear it or don't respond to it, it doesn't make a difference. Um, but if you hear it and respond to it, then you get some rest and you recharge your batteries and you do something for yourself, something that will make you happy,
Uh-huh.
and that gives you energy and you feel like you're doing things for a purpose. Okay.
Sure.
And after you kind of recharge your batteries, you can now go back on task, and go off and change the world. If you don't listen to that voice, or if you hear the voice but don't respond to it, well, you can keep pushing for a while. But the problem is, you're going to, sooner or later, the crash is going to come and the burnout is going to come. And the longer you push it, the harder the fall. And the
Mm-hmm.
longer it's going to take you to recover. And in extreme cases, this can take years. Um,
Uh-huh.
so
Sure.
for me, it's always, some of these key things have been recognizing the importance of finding, kind of finding the right balance and making sure I'm doing things that are not
Mm-hmm.
just good for, my bigger purpose in life, but are actually good for me and not just good for other people. And
Mm-hmm.
so, once a week, I get together with my wife. We call this celebrate and choose, celebrate what happened last week, choose what we want to do next week. And what I do is, I make it a point to underline the things that happened last week that made me happy.
Uh-huh.
And usually, or almost always, these include things that we did together. And that also provides some additional cement and glue in our relationship that, that we see that we're happy together, and so we kind of make sure that, we're doing things to kind of stay on an even keel. Okay. And
That's really cool.
that,
Yeah.
that that's proved to be very, very powerful and has helped us get through challenging times. So that's, yeah, it's
All
a very
right.
powerful concept. Yeah.
Very good, Peter. Yeah, no, I think celebrating is part of happiness
Mm,
and appreciation and gratefulness,
yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
it's all about seeing these moments and trying to replicate them, right? If we can do it and
Mm-hmm.
focus on that. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So, what are your main lessons learned so far about the business that you do and the companies you have worked with regarding to agility and to get things done?
Hmm. So for me, one of the great mysteries, okay,
Okay.
um, we talk about living in a complex world, a
Hmm.
rapidly changing world, okay? And, think about where you were 3 years ago, okay? It's maybe 3.5 years ago now. That is, just before COVID came along,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden COVID came along and everything changed, okay?
Hmm.
And then COVID ended and now the wars come in Europe and other things have happened. And again, everything has changed, okay?
Yes.
Um, the, um, I just lost my train of thought. Could you repeat the question?
Yes.
I
So, what are
yeah,
your main lessons learned so far about
yeah.
agility
Okay,
in companies,
good.
organizations?
Okay.
And yes,
Sorry, I got you. Okay, so here is the
it's
problem.
okay.
The riddle, I don't quite understand this. The first part of modern industry that was really hit with complexity was software development. When the dot-com boom came along and the internet came along and
Sure.
everybody was trying to develop software. And let's just be honest, collectively, we sucked at developing software. It was over budget, it was over promised, it under delivered. So many people went bankrupt in the dot-com boom because they couldn't deliver the software that they were trying to build.
Uh-huh.
Um, so the software people basically realized they needed a better way to do things, and that better way now goes by the name of agility and agile and Scrum and Kanban and a couple of other things. Okay, and
Hmm.
this is really great for managing complexity. Okay, it's all about the risks of complexity.
Hmm.
Now we look at the people who are running our businesses. Running a business, if there's anything more complex than software, it's running a business. Okay, because with businesses, you got difficult problems, you don't know the answers, you're not even sure if you're asking the right questions, but you do know if you get the wrong answer, it's going to be bad for the business, and you're going to have problems paying your bills. I mean,
Sure.
it's not, running a business is not for the faint of heart. So we've got all these wonderful tools for managing complexity, okay, developed
Yes.
by the software people, but somehow they don't resonate with the business people to
Mm.
manage their complex problems. Okay, and this for me is a puzzle. How can these two things be true? Okay, so that's kind of the piece of the puzzle that I'm trying to work on with personal agility, because I think we've kind of taken the elements that were very successful for software developers, but kind of distilled them down so it works when you're not producing software, and it works when you're not part of a productive team. It works when you're in a leadership role or in a sales role or something like that. And
Hmm.
this is the problem that I'm trying to solve is how do we how can we better manage the complexity of our environments? How can we take decisions, achieve long-term goals, hold our focus long enough to achieve them, and still at the same time react to new information without things getting totally out of control? Okay, that
Hmm.
that for me is the challenge of a modern business.
Okay. And what do you think will be the solution?
Um, so I think so one of them is what I call sense making, or what the
Hmm.
complexity types, they call it sense making. For me, it's much simpler than that. It's asking yourself powerful questions, questions
Mm.
that make you think, okay, to understand what the situation is, what the alternatives are, look for possible causes and possible solutions, and don't jump to the solutions before kind of before you thought about it. Um, Another part of that answer is what I call cadence. Okay, so
Cadence, yeah.
cadence is, or tact. What is it? Rhythm is, I think, what they call it in music. Okay, any musical piece has got a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, depending on the kind of music, and that kind of gets
Sure.
everybody in the dance synchronized, so they're all kind of moving in the same direction at once.
Hmm.
Now, if we look at modern computers, they all have a thing called a clock. Does anyone ever wonder why they have a clock? Well, what happens is deep down inside the electronics, they have to kind of understand what's happened. Then they're going to do some operations to kind of change the state and come up with the answers. And then they have to wait for things to settle down a bit before they can, reliably read the state and, kind of make their next round of decisions.
Hmm.
Okay. And so this basic rhythm, every digital computer has that.
Hmm.
Now, our management today is analog. Okay,
Mm.
we're making decisions all the time. We're meeting all the time. We're rethinking. We're reprioritizing. We never really let things settle down before we're willing to make a new decision. And this means that our decisions aren't very effective because things are constantly changing. Okay, and so I think that this basic rhythm that the software developers have pioneered of saying, okay, we got a long-term vision. Let's set a goal, an achievable goal for the next 2 to 4 weeks, maybe a month. Okay, let's work to achieve that goal, do our best to achieve that goal. And then when we get there, we use that to kind of, okay, let's take a fix. Where are we? Where, did this take us where we wanted to go? Do we need to adjust our destination? Do we need to adjust our course to get to our destination? This in Scrum, they call this inspect and adapt. Okay, and I think that this is something that I think there's tremendous improvement potential here. When the leadership teams can learn to inspect and adapt together as a team. Okay, I call this navigation, understanding where you are, where you're going, and comparing that to where you want to be going. When you have these three things, you can say, we need to turn 20 degrees to the left. What does it mean to turn 20 degrees to the left? Okay, and so we get tangible results at regular intervals, and this gives us the ability to hold a course for a longer period of time.
All right, very good. And what are the challenges that you are facing with this, you know, uh, structure, or let's say process?
In terms of adoption, I think it's very natural to the way engineers think, but I don't think it's very natural to the way the rest of us think. Okay, you look at the top companies today. Okay, look at Google, look at Amazon, Microsoft, SpaceX. Well, SpaceX and Tesla are the same company from that point of view. All of the
Sure.
top people in these companies, they have a background either in software development or electrical engineering. They understand digital electronics, they understand rhythm, they understand the importance of getting feedback. And I think people coming with a more traditional business background don't get that. The fast feedback that you need is somehow not as I don't think it's as prevalent. I could be wrong on this, but I kind of wonder, how come all of these companies, all of the top companies, have got people with an engineering background at their leadership, okay, and the older companies don't.
Sure.
Okay, so I think this is the change that's happening, and so if I were investing in startups, obviously I would expect them to be run by engineers. If I were running a larger company, I'd be looking to promote the engineers in my ranks into more leadership roles, to bring more of this complex thinking, or complexity oriented thinking into our business decisions.
Sure, sure. That's a very good point, actually, because I think engineering is like learning a different language of communication in a way. So it's mastering different kind of mindsets, and say, let's say, to solve issues, right, in different ways as
Yeah,
well, and to have this creativity or creative thinking. Very
yeah.
good. All right.
Yeah. Well, success is kind of binary. Look at SpaceX. They try to fire a rocket and either it goes up or it blows up. There's really not much in the middle between a successful launch and a disaster.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So if you try to launch and you have a disaster, obviously you have to fix it. Okay.
hmm
And you spend a lot of time testing and iterating on the design to get it
hmm
working. And that's something that every engineer and every computer programmer has been through. Okay,
Sure.
the nature is very uncompromising about wrong answers, and so you kind of keep working on it until you get the right answers. And
Uh-huh.
I think that's kind of what business is becoming right now.
Uh-huh.
A lot of opportunities to get wrong answers and a need to iterate to get it right.
Totally, yeah. We have to reinvent ourselves and mindsets all the time,
Hmm.
right? In
Yeah,
order to be
indeed.
flexible, adapt, and thrive in this changing world. And regarding that, Peter, what has been your challenges or your process to work on the mindset, right? Because finally, it's about the mindset, about the leadership, following the software team to
Mhm.
align with the leadership vision and purpose.
What I think has actually been most successful, okay, is
hmm
you can't change someone who's not ready for it, and so
hmm
usually there's someone in the organization who already gets it and kind of starts working on their leaders to at least take a look at it. I've been working with a group of businessmen for about 4 or 5 years now. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them, is that true? Maybe one of them has an engineering background. The rest of them have got traditional business backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've been doing is we've been doing what the Americans, I think, call a mastermind group. Okay,
Mm.
The Germans call it collective problem solving. Okay, among peers. And so the idea is we get together once a month and we pick a problem and we discuss the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we discuss the problem is, somebody has the problem. So let me give you an example of a problem. Three of
Sure.
our senior leaders, so 3 of our senior engineers are going to be retiring over the course of the next couple of years. How do we have a smooth transition? How do we replace them? How do we find the right people, and how do we structure the company so that we can continue functioning as these people move on?
Mm-hmm.
And these are not easy questions because it depends very much on the individual situation.
Uh-huh.
And so what we do is we work through, um, we go through a process where we basically say, okay, first of all, whoever has the issue, they explain the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got a group of peers in the room, and then we spend some time. The peers are asking what we call clarifying questions, trying to understand the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And really, the hardest thing to do is to not jump to solutions at this point. Everybody wants to jump to the solution. So, first, we ask clarifying questions. Then, we speculate on possible causes. Okay. And while we're speculating on possible causes, the person who brought the problem is asked to remain silent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is there's no debating. Okay. We're tossing out ideas about what could be the problem, we're tossing about ideas about what could be the solution. Okay, and so we spend some time on each of those topics: possible causes, possible solutions. Then we go back to the person who originally brought the problem, and they say, well, this is what resonated with me. This is what I think the causes are, and these sound promising as solutions. And sometimes people come looking for confirmation that they're on the right track, and sometimes people discover the problem is completely different than what they thought it was, and they need to move in a different direction. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I found interesting watching this group over the course of several years is that they
Yes.
this pattern of asking each other clarifying questions has become kind of a routine for them. It's something they do not just in this round, but they do it in real life as well. So,
Yeah.
like when they're dealing, everybody's been dealing with supply chain issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but you can start talking to your suppliers, and yeah, well, one approach is to beat on the table and say, I need it now. The other approach is to start asking them clarifying questions to understand what their problems are and challenges are, and, how we can help. And so you develop kind of a natural attitude, which is more focused on the win-win. Okay.
That's
So
right.
I think this agile mindset,
Mm-hmm.
uncovering better ways of what we do by
Mm-hmm.
doing it and helping each other to do it, it takes some it's a little bit weird in business because you're not necessarily used to cooperating with each other. Businesses is very competitive, but if you
Mm-hmm.
can create these safe spaces where you can cooperate with each other or collaborate with each other, it actually kind of wears on you, and it starts to shape your style of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that there's a lot of potential for businesses to discover these concepts of agility. And it's not about doing Scrum and story points and backlogs and all that sort of stuff. It's more about inquiry and talking to each other and exploring and discovering answers and really looking for better ways of what you're doing, with people whose opinion you value and trust. Okay. And I think that's a very
Mm-hmm.
powerful, powerful metaphor.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I actually finished reading a book recently. It was The
Yeah.
Unsold Mindset. It's a
Hmm.
new book, and they were talking about how business, instead of being competitive and I win you and you lose and all that, is
Hmm.
instead of
Hmm.
collaborating, have a common ground and have a win-win solution and add like team members,
Hmm.
partners rather than
Hmm.
business provider or clients or so. Yeah, very good. These clarifying questions was also in the book. That's why it reminds me. So it
Hmm.
was very
Yeah.
good. I like
You'll
it.
find it in my book too.
Very
Yeah.
good. Peter, thank you so much for the interview. It was great.
Hey, thank
I
you.
just wanted to ask a last question and then maybe final words that you want to share. The final question will be if you could put a big message to the whole world, what will be? What last message will you leave?
Oh, what message? Ah, it's okay to do things that make you happy.
Sorry?
Okay. It's okay to do things just because they make you happy.
Ah, okay.
Okay. And what happened before doesn't make any difference. You can't
Mm-hmm.
change that, but you can change what happens moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
I love it. Thank you so much. Very nice. So I don't know if there is any last words that you want to share, Peter, before we close down.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity and maybe give a friendly reminder to anyone who's out there listening that I'm very happy
Yeah,
to connect on LinkedIn and discuss anyone's challenges. So
sure.
open invitation to do so. And beyond that, I'm going to say thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing, how this plays out live. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to you, Peter. Thanks. It was a big pleasure. And thank you so much for sharing your lessons. See you later. Bye bye.